Welcome and thanks for joining me today. I'm going to give a presentation today about a concept we call market readiness here at ChemADVISOR. I've certainly given this presentation before, but CA really feels that ChemADVISOR really feels this is an important message, and I think the fact that you're here helps me realize that you do too. We're going to talk about the concept, and I'm going to lead us through a perspective on what is needed to bring products to market effectively and certainly in compliance with all the rules, regulations that affect those products and in the countries and regions in which they are sold. But I have this slide here because you work for a business, I work for a business, and what is your goal? I mean, hopefully, and I'm sure it is to get your products to market as quickly as you can and in compliance. So that brings us to this term, market readiness, probably one maybe you haven't used, certainly verbatim, but certainly a concept that certainly all companies embrace. And it really, at any company, is a very tightly aligned with a robust product stewardship program. We're going to talk a bit about that in a moment. And certainly product stewardship and how it is employed, certainly at any company, will differ from that of any other company. But that being said, I believe they all need to interact and should include the key functions and units with any given company, even though they may not use the same exact names. And that would be HSE, health, safety, environment, or whatever you might call it, marketing, manufacturing, and development. So let's take a few minutes here and examine market readiness from a company perspective. It starts with sound document management. I think many things start with that, and processes that ensure when data is needed to support new markets, reporting requirements, or compliance activities, that the data, the information is available and will be for the length of time necessary to satisfy the regulatory requirements. And perhaps the simplest question that needs to be asked is a very practical one. Can the product be effectively sold? Oftentimes best asked before the product is ready to be shipped. And do you understand the product and any restrictions or risk management outcomes that will affect how it's labeled? And that's a very real potential to affect the customer's perception of your product. And what language, classifications, and symbols will be needed or placed in the safety data sheet. And certainly, even if all is great with your product labeling and distribution, a key part to making sure all stays well is being sure that there are robust documentation, creation, and retention procedures to serve the regulatory aspects of your product. HSE does not share this alone. It must also be a part of processes in all other involved departments. Market readiness may also involve multiple countries, and in some cases issues involved in the United States. Can you assure that you have a full set of the regulatory knowledge needed to get and keep the product compliant into the future? You may need to consider whether compliance will necessitate in-country representation that you may or may not even have at your company. And regardless, and once again, do you have a global system or at least a company-wide one to obtain, store, and retrieve information that may be routinely required to meet the many and varied state and international regulatory requirements? This may seem obvious, and I'm sure you can all tell a story or two, I know I could, about whether it is known or perhaps better said communicated where your product will be sold. And this is really not an issue of whether you know or understand a particular set of regulatory requirements, but very simply an issue of have you been informed and will you be informed of all the places where the product will be sold and when, as well as all the uses it is perceived to have. And perhaps, once again, needless to say, these will greatly impact the documentation that will need to be available and may require additional markings or registrations, and most certainly can impact the languages and any or all it will have to be created in. Certainly, What's the end game? All products have to be transported, somewhere to be used, processed, or further distributed. Are you sure that restrictions due to composition, risk management outcomes, its packaging, or volumes will impact the ability to use a particular mode of transport? And who? Can you say who is responsible for the product literature, fact sheets, or advertising materials? And are they tied into the stewardship process? Are they aware of what can and cannot be said about a product that may affect how the product needs to be registered, approved, or labeled for sale? And let's not leave out the actual and certainly the real and actual product and how it is sold. Is it understood what is going on with the product as it's manufactured or processed for sale or use by your customers? Are you sure that mixture is really a mixture and that no chemical transformations, hence manufacture, may be going on in the process of making that product? Is it heated? Is it dried? Sold as a liquid when you were told it's isolated as a solid? And any or other aspects such as this can affect how and what needs to be considered for chemical control, things like TSCA or REACH, or what the hazard communication aspects may be. And lastly, at least for this particular part of our discussion, if all goes well, as it usually does, and we get your product to where you intend it to go, which may or may not be your own or some other warehouse, can you store it and can it be stored effectively? Are there the right permits, fire codes? And certainly this brings to mind my favorite in Japan, the Japanese fire code, or special labeling for facilities, such as it may need to be isolated or temperature controlled, or fire suppression devices may be required. All of these may or may not exist and may or may not make it cost prohibitive. So I just took a few moments and you went with me here to talk about it from a company perspective, but we certainly also need to, and perhaps which most of us do, take a look at market readiness from an HSE perspective. What are these many aspects for this market readiness? And these are often, and I think you can probably identify with this, left to the Health, Safety, and Environmental Department to make sure that these products are ready to be sold in their markets. From my way of thinking, and probably yours, you may have to have a very thorough look at all different aspects of market readiness, and it starts at least from one aspect of chemical control. Have any and all inventory issues, registrations for TSCA or REACH type regulations been addressed, and not just for today, but for the future and for any anticipated uses? Has a communication? Has a product been properly classified for all countries in which it will be sold? And maybe we could have a long discussion on this. Is GHS making that easier or not for us? And is it labeled, and do you have an SDS in all language and formats needed for that product and where it's sold? And sooner or later, you got to ship it. I mean, that's how we get it to our customers. And have all the trip ups associated with transport been considered? And kind of the last and sometimes the most difficult is those state, local, and even product-specific regulatory needs. Have they been addressed, and are you aware of them? And is this a sound program process within your company that can be relied upon, that you can feel comfortable with as you communicate to the rest of your business? I've stated it briefly already, and it should all start with chemical control. Certainly not at the cost of any of the other aspects, and certain products may demand different ways of going about it. And the central premise there is that you indeed need to know all the components. And it may be only one, so that might be simple, all the components of your product, and that you have a reliable method to check the inventories of all the countries where it is anticipated the product will be sold. And it certainly, as we get more and more nuances on regulations across the globe, this can be more and more trying. And I put REACH here, not certainly because REACH is more important or anything else, but we're getting a lot of regulations throughout the globe that are labeled as REACH-like, and I would highly suggest that you examine those carefully before you just think of them as REACH and REACH alone. We've talked about labels and SDSs and all the requirements for them from a marketing and sales perspective, but the whole aspect depends pretty much entirely on what is done by HSE to assure compliance. Compliance is understood by HSE as they have been told by the company and its business entity. HSE ensures the classifications are correct and comply with GHS and the particular version of that GHS in the countries in which you may be doing business. HSE is charged with understanding what language formats and components are required for safety data sheets, and if those safety data sheets are available to the company, HSE often has little control as to how or if they ever make it to the company. You may put a great document together, but can you say how it gets to the customer? And certainly HSE has a key role in that label language and its content, but truthfully and in many cases has little and oftentimes no control over exactly what goes on the product and the label as it is shipped. So where does the transportation responsibility fall in your company? One of the surest ways to ensure a product does not get to its destination, obviously, is to mess up the transport. You may have a reliable classification based on sound composition, but does any of it result in mode restrictions for transport? Or is the packaging appropriate for the classification or mode of transport, or will it be costly, time-consuming, or sometimes even over-packaged for the requirement? And don't forget, do not forget about the many complications that can result from the need to rapidly transport a product. I think you could sit there and we could all come up with examples. And they certainly, if it's rapid, it most often relies on air transport, and certainly there were prohibitions resulting from packaging or container size and volume and risk are certainly the highest for air transport. Well, I hope I haven't told you too much, and we've done this pretty quickly, that you don't already know or certainly haven't thought about, and hopefully maybe I put it in a context that allows you to assess how you're doing. Because the success of a product and its ability really to meet the customer's needs in company objectives relies on a great deal of coordination, knowledge, and reliable processes. And all can be for naught if the consideration of what about the product when it gets to the customer are not factored in. Are there issues associated with the product because of its properties? Not the ones you're selling it for, maybe, perhaps, that will negatively affect those who have purchased and used your products. And certainly VOCs and disposal issues are two of many of the possibilities here. You may be saying, hey, we got it covered, and you're feeling good, and that's great. But if you don't, or maybe if you haven't had any problems or are thinking, well, I don't want to have any problems, you must consider the result of a glitch in your process or a hole in your compliance or just a simple, uncontrollable burp in the system. What can happen? I can assure you it'll impact your time to market. And any delay means cost. And it could also mean cost for recalls, for fines. And it may really, but unfortunately, help your company get a grassroots understanding of the true cost of compliance. And perhaps, and I cannot say what is the most important, but what is your company's name or reputation worth? So, hopefully you've thought about it a bit, and can you say, or would you be able to say that you know that your products are ready to sell where you want, when you want, in compliance today, tomorrow? Don't forget next year or the year after. Can you say that your company works effectively together with HSE, marketing, manufacturing, and development to create an effective product stewardship process that ensures that your products are market ready. If not, or if you have some doubts or concerns, ChemADVISOR is here to help. That's certainly the reason that I'm here talking to you today. We can partner with you to answer those questions or mitigate those doubts. We can check all or portions of your portfolio and provide you complete and reliable checks to assess the market readiness of your products. We will create a simple report. We use a standard, and I think a pretty easy to read Microsoft Excel format to give you a straightforward way to be sure you understand and have the right substance identities. You have all your inventory notifications appropriately in place, that you're properly classified. You have the safety data sheets and labels that you need. We can help you address transportation concerns or do classifications, and even if needed, identify specific product, state, or local issues. And importantly, and where we find where things may not be ready, we indicate what that gap is and are prepared to work with you to address those gaps and assist you in implementing sound strategies to ensure that we address those and that they don't occur again. We certainly understand, or you wouldn't even be here probably, that you want and work hard to ensure that your products have saleability and that they are market ready. And we hope, if need be, that we can be of some assistance to you. I just want to take this one last opportunity, and the reason I put this slide up is we've talked about markets ready, to kind of leave this in your head and maybe help you think about what sorts of market readiness or saleability products or checks might you need. May only be a single product. You may want to send it multiple places, or single country in multiple places, and you can read through this. Or you may take it from another perspective, and we can help you look at it from a market specific, where you're just going into specific markets and kind of take bits and pieces of all of it. Or if you just have questions on a specific regulation, we can help you there as well. I thank you for your attention here today, and hopefully if you have some questions, we could take a little bit of time to get those answered today. Thanks.